Hi, guys. Welcome to tonight's live chat. I see you guys in the chat box. It's so nice to see you. Today has been one of those days where I've just been counting down the minutes, literally the minutes. So it's good to end my day with you. Let me go through this whole thing with Instagram, as always. Let me grab the link and get them hooked up, and then we can go ahead and no, we're going to cancel that. We can go ahead and then jump in. So let's do this, remove. I'm going to add, I don't want the Instagram people to be on the outs again. So let me set that up. This live chat, I think, is going to be an interesting one for all of you because really what we're talking about tonight is not only family members, but we're talking about people that we trust. We're talking about family members. We are talking about friends, people that we trust, not just family members, but people that we hope will respect us and regard us and really and honestly keep the things that we tell them or the things that they know about us private. I also too want to add, okay, Instagram is doing okay. Hold on, guys. I'm just going to say welcome to the live chat. Come to my channel if you would like to comment or ask questions. Okay, that's Instagram. There we go. We're good to go. Tonight's live chat is also just going to be about, simply put, the psychology of busybodies and meddlers. Okay. And I want to break down what I actually mean by that because psychology looks at meddlers and busybodies a different way than we're used to hearing the terms used. So when we mention the word busybodies, okay, that's a layman's everyday term to describe an individual that psychology recognizes as potentially detrimental and individuals who have some dark personality traits. And I'm going to highlight that as we go along in tonight's live chat. Dark personality traits can be at the core of busybodies and meddlers. Meddlers, okay, is more of a, it's a little bit of a elevated term, that's a little above calling somebody nosy or nebby or constantly in somebody else's business or personal space. Meddlers also have personality traits that could be dark, and the dark personality traits really is highlighted in a very interesting way. So the psychology of busybodies and meddlers is interesting because as we go through this conversation, you're probably going to be like, what? I never thought that. I didn't know my nosy neighbor was actually a psychopath. I didn't know that my meddling, nosy, condescending uncle is a narcissist, right? So I'm going to highlight some dark personality traits. I also want to make it very known to you by the end of this live chat, some ways that you can identify these meddlers and busybodies and nosy individuals just by understanding characteristics in their behavior and patterns of behavior. Now, let me also put out here as a disclaimer that not everybody who is a busybody, constantly moving and doing things and constantly into things and looking for things, and not every meddler, somebody who wants to know what's going on at your personal core, right? It's something that's close to you. They want to know all about it. These individuals are not always dark. As a matter of fact, psychology says that being a busybody, being a meddler, being nosy, it can all be a natural process for human beings. And it is, right? I'm not the individual who gossips. I never have been. I don't like gossipers. And anytime a gossiper approaches me, I'm like, nope, we're not doing that. Because there's some psychology to the process of gossiping. And we're going to talk about that a little bit too. There's kind of like this desire that's at the core of dark gossipers. We're going to talk about that. So I'm not a gossiper. I don't like gossip. However, will I talk about a situation that has become a part of my world And I'm trying to understand the intricacies involved, the players involved, the outcome, the motivations. Am I trying to understand that because it's a part of my world? 100%. That is very different from being a gossiper, a meddler, a busybody. So I'm going to highlight those differences for you tonight. Let me also throw in here that the the uh, the psychology of a meddler and a busybody really boils down to nosy people versus observant people. Okay. Are you just being observant in your environment, or are you being a meddler, a dark personality that is going to utilize that information in my world and in my life against me, to harm me, to destroy me, to do something that's going to upset my peace, my world, my stability? There's a difference, right? The nosy person with dark characteristics, the busybody, the meddler with dark characteristics, and I'm going to highlight what those are in a little bit here. These individuals utilize that information that they have on you, whether it's true or false, or they're constantly meddling and prodding and trying to open the doors and the windows and just trying to see into your world. Are you a dark personality, or are you observant? And so I'm going to highlight that as well. I think the difference between being a dark personality who is a meddler and a busybody, there's a difference between that characteristic and the characteristic of just being observant. Observant is a healthy personality characteristic because you're observing all the things that's going on in your environment. When I was in college, I'll give you a little bit of an example just to broaden this view a little bit. When I was in college, so many years ago, over 15 years ago, I remember studying not only my forensic law classes, but also my psychology classes. And I would sit in the on-campus coffee shop. The coffee shop was the place to be, okay? Because what I learned over time is the very people that I was studying in college from a forensic law perspective and a psychology perspective, I was studying both. From both of those perspectives, the coffee shop was what I needed as my internship, so to speak, because I got a chance to not only study and do some work, but observe the interactions between people. And what I learned in that coffee shop really helped me, I think, understand human behavior, how busy we are, right? How really socially distracted we can be, how worried some of us are. You know, I was observing different facial expressions. There were certain individuals in the coffee shop that looked burdened and sad. They looked stressed and overwhelmed. Some were really happy and nonchalant about things. There were some that were clearly freshmen because they were just happy to be on a campus. They didn't care. They were just glad they were out of mom and dad's house. You could see that on them as well. You could also look at the people who were ringing up the students, you know, bringing up their coffee and their snacks. And, you know, you could see they were tired and stressed, and some of them were just pleasant, and the list goes on. So I found myself observing everybody in that coffee environment, that a coffee house environment. And I also saw my professors there sitting and drinking coffee and just kind of engaging with students and peers. And what I learned about myself in that experience, and this is just I'm trying to give you a vibrant example of this. My behavior was observant, and I observed a lot. I even observed gossiping. I observed ostracism, social ostracism, where, you know, you could clearly see there were cliques over there, and these geeks over here better not look at that clique over there because they're going to be looked down upon. There were also racial divides and differences and age differences. And so that's an observation, right? That's being observant. And I took that information and I wrote about it and passed a paper test. I used that information to pass my exams. I used that information to create my PowerPoint presentations. Observant. Gossip, nosiness, meddlers, busybodies, totally different. Totally different. They grab that information and they store it for later use. Typically, I'm either going to take this information and use it against you in some form, or I'm going to take this information and I'm going to tell somebody else about it. because it's enjoyable. We're going to talk about that too in a little bit. Or I'm going to sit on this information just in case I need it to put you in a position that you won't be able to get out of. And I've seen that in the past 15 years of my career. There are evil people like that. Let me tell you what research says, and then I'm going to go to the chat box. I also want to welcome you and see what your comments are so far. I'm sure you guys can really relate to this. I'm sure you can. So let me tell you what psychology says. There was a research paper done in 2022. I'm going to make sure I post it in the description box for you. There was a research paper done on meddlers and busybodies, nosy people, gossipers. And here's what psychology showed: that the dark triad characteristics tended to be at the core of individuals who like to gossip, meddle, and constantly get into things because they want to use it either against the other person that they're talking about or trying to get into the business of, or they're going to sit on it, in case they need it later, or they're going to go and spread that information because there's some kind of social reward that you feel when you gossip about somebody else's life, or that you feel when you get in the middle of somebody's juicy information, right? So psychology says that there's dark triad traits that are at the core of some busybodies, meddlers, and nosy people, gossipers. The dark triad traits are, and I'm going to add the fourth trait, which changes this dynamic. So I'm going to add that in a little bit here. But the three characteristics that psychology research has highlighted is psychopathy. I'm going to break this down so you can see exactly how this happens in your own life. Psychopathy, narcissism, Machiavellianism. Machiavellianism is that inner pleasure at seeing something happen to somebody else because you want that other person to be harmed, something bad to happen to them. You want to get a leg up on them. You want to one up them, whatever. You have pleasure. The individual who has Machiavellian traits feels pleasure at watching somebody else's demise. Now, sadism or sadistic personality traits would be that fourth component. And so that fourth component to the dark triad, sadistic personality, is an individual who gets pleasure out of seeing other people hurt for whatever reason. And the individual could be watching an elderly person cross the street, a busy highway. They're not going to feel bad about that. Sadistic personality traits, they might laugh. They might say, oh, that's a shame, and keep going on. They may even feel pleasure at the fact that something has happened to that lady over there. I don't know her. I don't care to know her. I just know something bad happened to her, and it kind of made me feel good. I found it interesting. I found it funny. So that's the sadistic personality trait. And research in psychology on busybodies, meddlers, and nosy people and gossipers highlights that those four characteristics are often at the core of these individuals: psychopathy, narcissism, Machiavellianism, and sadistic personality traits. I'm going to break this down in just a little bit. Okay, guys, I'm going to go to the chat box and see what you guys are saying. Welcome you to tonight's live chat. Terry McKinney, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. I have never seen you before, so I welcome you. Cam, glad to see you back tonight. Tammy Nicely, so glad to see you back. She McGee, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Let me just skim over this in case this is something that is a part of tonight's live chat. Okay, She McGee says, I don't know what NM is. I'm terrible with acronyms. Narcissistic mother, I'm going to guess, had a friend like this. My mom would confide in her, and repeatedly, when she had a chance to be a bride, she chose instead to be a wedge. She did the same with my mom versus dad. Drama, absolutely. Most individuals who are busybodies and meddlers and gossipers and, individuals who just get desire out of creating trouble, drama, they are very much at the seat of of Machiavellianism and sadistic personality traits. This is who they are. This is not just this person is engaging in a behavior. The behavior is the person. Okay, let me repeat that because that's a little bit tricky. It's not like the person is engaging in a unfathomable behavior. It's the behavior is the person. This is who they are. And so people who drive wedges between other people, or they're busybodies, or they're nosy, or they're meddlers, they tend to have one goal in mind. And again, that's to create some kind of dissension, some kind of challenge, some kind of misinformation, because they get a sense of pleasure out of that whole experience. I'm going to continue on in just a little bit. I'll break it down for you. Sunkiss Diva 01, hello, welcome, glad to have you. Hope you're having a great Friday. Ellie Wynn, hello and welcome. Hope you're having a good Friday too. I was so glad when the clock hit 5 o'clock. Sometimes that's the end to my day. HSR 1986, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. I am looking for comments. Sun and Sunflower. Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that. Welcome, welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. I also see Mark Miller. Wait, let me go back over this. Mark Milliner. I missed that part. Hello and welcome. Welcome. T Mac, welcome to you. Love, Laugh, Live. Maggie, welcome back. Discog? Is that what it is? Yeah, welcome, welcome. I think that's right. If not, forgive me. Welcome, glad to have you. Cam says just the intro has solidified that this will be applying to my situation. Wow, I'm sure it is. I think a lot of us experience this. We just don't know, unless you're in psychology, how to identify the behavior and the problem. Let me fix my lighting here for a minute, guys. I feel like it's dark in here. You tell me, does it feel like the lighting is weird? I don't know. I feel like it's weird. Unless it's just me. I don't know. That might be a little better. Okay. Sharifa says, well, I'm sure it's relatable, isn't it? Yeah. She says, busybodies and nosy folks as psychopaths. This is about to be interesting. Yeah. And not only not just psychopaths, we're also talking about narcissists. So we're going to get into this in a second, because what I want you guys to be able to walk away with this conversation thinking is, okay, there's a difference between people who just like to talk, people who enjoy gossip, and people who use it, or meddlers and busybodies. There's a difference between the innocent ones and the dangerous ones. So I want you to be able to walk away from tonight's live chat with knowledge, okay? HSR 1986 says meddlers and busybodies equals controllers, manipulators, and extortionists. I agree. Couldn't have said it better myself. Curdy Fraser, hello and welcome. Glad to have you back in tonight's live chat. I've been seeing you quite a bit. I'm glad to see you. Grow, hello and welcome. Sup. My brothers can talk like that. I can't, it doesn't come out. It doesn't. I don't know why. I sound just corny. Phoenix, hello, welcome. Glad you're here tonight. So glad to hear that. All right, I'm looking for comments, guys. Sadie Smith, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Yes, glad that you were able to come back on a live chat. Welcome back, glad to see you. Jnet, hello and welcome with the awesome curls. Welcome, glad to have you in tonight's live chat. HSR says it's the difference between curious, observant versus nosy, trying to learn something legitimately versus trying to gain information you don't have the right to access for suspect reasons. Very much agree. I love how you put that, right? Trying to gain information you don't have the right to access. That is so key. Underline that, guys. That's key. Because what a narcissist does, a psychopath, a sadistic personality, as well as a personality that is Machiavellian, what those characteristics cause the individual to do is bypass, minimize, and ignore your boundaries. That's the problem at the core. There's no boundaries. Gossip can also be a lack of boundaries. It's, oh, I'm going to take this information from there. I'm going to take that information from there and here, and I'm going to bring it center stage and go and tell my sister, this is what I heard from A, B, and C. I'm going to get something stirred up and going where nobody really knows what the truth is because my mouth has been on it and all over it. And now my cousin knows, my sister knows, my uncle knows, my friend knows, my neighbor knows, right? So it's a web of darkness, if you ask me, because it really does. It's a power play. It says, in a sense, I'm here above you, and we're going to talk about why in a second. I'm here above you because I have this information that I have the power to talk about. And I can decide if I'm going to add something to it, take something from it. I have the power to also decide how far I want to go in this thing. And so it's a very dark and evil behavior when you start to really pick and pull it apart. Some people are innocently nosy. The old lady across the street, nosy. You know, my neighbor that's about 4 houses down, I'm so private. You don't know half of what's going on in my life because I'm private. I like my space. I like my quiet. I like my peace, right? So my neighbor about 4 doors down is the closest we have gotten is a wave, a smile, a toot of the horn when I'm on my way to work, whatever. And that's all she's going to know because she's one of those sweet, nice, but nosy elderly people. And that's okay to a certain extent. What we're talking about in tonight's live chat, HSR 1986 here just summed it up. Gaining information you don't have the right to access. That's exactly the people that we're talking about in tonight's live chat. Moon Warrior Turtle, hello. No, you did not miss it. I had to push it back to 7. I had a client. It went over a little bit. Welcome. I'm glad to have you tonight. Thank you for coming back on. Okay, looking for comments. Sunkiss Diva 01, and then we're going to get back into the content. Sunkiss Diva 01 says, I go to my neighborhood park just to observe nature and people as well. I deem myself as a human anthropologist to keep from seeming, I think that's what you meant, so creepy. I like that, human anthropologist. Yeah, you're being an observer, and it's not creepy at all. My on-campus coffee shop talk was for you. And anybody else who feels like you are observing. It's okay to observe. That's who we are. That's how we learn people. You know, my interest in psychology grew out of observing dynamics between human beings and families and people and relationships. Nothing is wrong with that. It's that dark, evil core, though, that research in psychology is highlighting. So we're going to talk a lot more about that as the night goes on. Christina LZ, hello and welcome. I'm glad to see you back tonight. Says, because they feel better than you and don't want to see you achieve anything. Sometimes that does motivate gossiping. Sometimes it motivates busybodies or meddlers. And we're going to get into that as well in a little bit here. Adila, hello and welcome. Glad to have you tonight. All right, I'm skimming through. Best version of self-magnified. Ooh, I like that. Good evening to you as well. Glad to have you. Craigslist. Oh my God. That's a very interesting. I like that screen name. The Book of Job is a 2024 reality show. Some people need a New Testament. Yeah, I can agree with that. I can agree. I don't disagree. Okay. Mama Boom Bam. Oh my God. Welcome. Glad to have you tonight. Says a word that comes to mind is control. Yes, control, power, dominance. That's really what it is. We're going to get to that in just a second. DD, hello and welcome. Yeah, we're going to talk about a little bit of religion, just a little bit, because that's where busybodies, meddlers, gossiper, nosy people, that's where you find them, right? In that religious group. And that is traumatic for some people, right? Welcome, DD. I don't think I welcomed you. Let me say briefly here too, before I move on, DD, that in the religious environment, the church environment, it is the most, and it can be the most toxic environment. I think that sometimes the church and religious environment can be one of the most toxic places. I rather sit amongst people who don't even acknowledge that there's a God. If they are humble, There's boundaries. They're open-minded. They are willing to consider things. They are knowledgeable. I'd rather sit around them than sit around a bunch of religious people who think they know everything. That's arrogant, self-centered, rude, gossiping, and just completely disrespectful. I'd rather not deal with that religious group over there that has all those characteristics. I'd rather deal with another group of people who maybe society would oust. I'd rather deal with them than a bunch of, overly pious and religious. I'm trying to find the right word for this. Religious people, or people who are wrapped up in religiosity. I'd rather not. No, especially if you're going to gossip about Sister Kim over there, that she just got a divorce. Yes, like half of Americans in the United States and around the world. Like, there's nothing that great about that. Leave her alone. Let her grieve in her own space, right? I'm sure some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Phoenix says, I think I'm very observant because of traumatic childhood events I went through, not being able to speak up about it. I had a racist, narcissist stepdad that would say we were to be seen and not heard. Yeah, absolutely. Childhood trauma can absolutely cause you to be very observant, right? Fear. I think, and I'll give you a little bit of a personal example here. I think once I was a therapist for 3 or 4 years. When I first got into the field, I was a new therapist, worked in a psychiatric hospital, dealt with a lot of odd things in the hospital, worked in the emergency department. So as you can imagine, there were probably, thousands of people that entered that emergency room every day with a psychiatric issue. And after seeing that there was a lot going on there, and I was not safe, and, I had one patient that was stalking me for a while. After that, I became extraordinarily observant. There's a reason why I have a YouTube channel, and it kind of grew out of that, just being on my toes, being in fight or flight mode, and really learning people by observing them, So yes, traumatic situations can lead to that. Let me pause the chat box. Let's get into the content, guys. I'm going to come back to the chat box in a little bit. I'll get the rest of you and welcome you, but let me just break this down for you, okay? So psychology research is really trying to understand the dark triad traits, the Machiavellianism, the psychopathy, and the narcissism. What is going on at the core of people who are busybodies? They're constantly wrapped up in something. They create separation, segregation. They meddle in your business. They go behind your back and backstab you. They socially ostracize you, meaning they push you over here by yourself, and then they take everybody over here away from you. And so you start to feel empty, right? Maybe even angry, maybe even afraid, maybe even harassed and bullied in some instances, right? Consider your family. Do you have nosy meddlers in your family, gossipers in your family, where you don't feel safe telling anybody in your family anything because it gets around? My late great grandmother on my mom's side, or was it on my dad's side? I think it's my mom's side. She used to say to my mom all the time. I was a little girl, like 6, 7, 8. And she used to say to my mom all the time, I'm going to tell you this about a family member, but don't you tell them I told you. And my mom would just like pass that on to me. Don't say anything. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not good. What happens in a family that's like that, right? You just kind of shut down. You say, you know what? I've already learned my lesson. I'm not going to tell you anything because it's going to get around to somebody I don't want it to. What's going on at the core of these people? Psychology says the dark triad traits. Consider narcissism. Narcissism is a need for status. It's a desire for attention. It's the desire to be above and beyond. The desire to put themselves in a category all by themselves in a good way. I'm over here in the special people category because I'm wonderful and you're not. Narcissism can also be, I want to take the credit, or I want to boost my status in some way. So a narcissist who is a busybody, a meddler, a gossiper, a nosy person, they are obtaining information that doesn't belong to them, or like HSR 1986 said, information that they don't deserve to have or doesn't rightfully belong to them. A narcissist takes that information, especially if it's a narcissistic family member, they really feel entitled. They take that information and they spread it on. Why? Because they have information that Uncle Neff doesn't have, Aunt Kim and Aunt BB doesn't have, Sister Shelly in the church doesn't have, Bobby doesn't have, the neighbors don't have. I'm going to take that information and it's going to be a glowing ball of empowerment for me as a narcissist, because I want the power, the control, and I also want the dominance. And having all this information that I'm not entitled to puts me above. And so that's the narcissist. Now mix that with Machiavellianism, which is that internal desire of wanting to cause other people harm, right? It's that pleasure that the person gets after they see you harmed. They're calculating and manipulative, right? Machiavellians. And so if you add up narcissism with Machiavellianism, it makes sense as to why they would be meddlers, nosy, gossipy, busybodies, because narcissism, again, dominance, control, and power. On top of that, they're calculating and manipulative. Let's add in the psychopathy on top of that. Now we're talking about callousness and coldness. So whatever they want to gossip about, talk about, meddle in, they don't care, right? They're cold and uncaring and callous at the core of who they are. So they don't care if they tell your private business. They don't care if you've confided in them. They don't care if you've asked them not to share it with anybody. They're psychopaths. So they're uncaring and they're callous. And then let's add in the sadistic personality traits. They get pleasure out of seeing other people hurt. In a nutshell, that is a ball of fire, right? That's a volcano. You have somebody in your family at work that you're in a relationship with, maybe a best friend, and she has the dark triad traits, psychopathy, narcissism, Machiavellianism, and she seems to be sadistic in some ways. Then you've got a whole volcano of just instability, a desire for control, status, attention, a desire for power. Then you have the calculating, manipulative piece. You have the callousness and the uncaring personality. That's the psychopathy. And then you have the sadistic personality, which is the pleasure out of seeing other people hurt. And according to research, that equals, all of that adds up to equal meddlers, busybodies, nosy people, and gossipers. Not all people, but we're talking about the evil, dark side of these individuals who really come back to harm you in some fashion with what they know. Psychology research, and even in my own clinical experience, also points to these individuals have a sense of entitlement. They are entitled, right? If you just pause, sometimes you need to say it out loud, entitled, and then really kind of process that. What am I saying there when I say entitled? These individuals feel that they have an absolute right to the information that they are getting. You know, just like you feel that you have a right to drink water and eat food and have a house to live in, just like you feel that you have the right to date or marry anybody you want to date and marry, right? That same level of confidence that what you want is a normal need, is something you have a right to. That's what an entitled individual feels. They have an absolute right to your information, to meddle in your business, to get in the middle of your business, your life, to create chaos in your world. They have a firm belief that they have a right to it. Okay, guys? So entitlement, I deserve to know disposition. There's a lack of boundaries with these individuals, according to research in psychology. They desire to control and manipulate. That's at the core. They are callous and disregarding, I don't care kind of disposition. Disregarding says, I don't even think about how this is going to hurt you, mess with your mind, how it's going to destroy your relationships, maybe your reputation, your status, your family, power. I don't care. I'm disregarding of all of that. So the disregarding characteristic is there as well with these kind of individuals. There's little to no respect for you or even anybody else. Little to no respect. There's no graciousness. It's not there within them. That's why psychology has always tried to figure out, or maybe I should put it this way, psychology in recent years has tried to figure out what are these dark personality traits? Because these individuals get in the middle of your world, whether it's family, a husband, wife, a boyfriend, girlfriend, a coworker, boss. They get into the middle of your world and they really try to drive, they steer it. And they do it with their desire to create chaos, their need for dominance and control. And they also do it by becoming a meddler and a nosy, gossipy individual right in the center of your world. You know, you may even start to feel like they've taken everything out from under you and you're just trying to find some footing, some foundation, you know, because they've gotten into your life somehow. And family, they've gotten into your life. They are also a part of this. And they created a situation where you don't feel safe. So little to no respect. They also tend to have no interest in the investment of the relationship. So here's what I mean by that. They have no interest in the investment in the relationship. You guys could have been friends for 25 years. They don't care. You could have been married for 100 years. That doesn't matter. You have been family since day one. That doesn't matter. There is no concern or care for the investment of the relationship. You invest time, energy, sweat, tears, emotions, time. You invest all of that into relationships with people, right? And so these kind of individuals don't care about that investment. It doesn't matter. Some of these individuals can be your jealous sister, your envious and jealous mother, brother, father, jealous coworker, girlfriend, boyfriend. There could be envy, and psychology also highlights competitiveness. There's also at the core of these individuals a goal to skew the perception of reality. If I can just gossip to Susu over there, I can skew her perception of Mike, you know. Or if you have a mom, oh God forbid, but I know there are some out there. If you have a mom that takes things that you have shared with her and shares it with your brother or your sister, or shares it with Uncle Bobo over there or Aunt NOSEY, then that's an issue, right? The goal is to skew that other person's view of you. The gossip also skews that other person's view of you, because now they have to kind of sit there and process what has been told to them. I'll give you an example. And then I'm going to go to the chat box, then we'll come back. Okay, guys, we'll talk some more. But I'm going to say a couple years ago, I had a client that came in. Her parents, of all people, you ready for this, guys? Her parents were therapists. Of all people, of all the different things they could have been, they were parents. They were parents and therapists who were parents. And what they did over the course of this young lady's development, she was 15 when she came to me. What they did is they confided in grandma, they confided in grandpa. So everything the 15-year-old would tell mom and dad, she was believing that they were holding her information like a therapist would. You know, I'm going to hold this information from grandma and grandpa, and I'm going to promise you I'm not going to tell them anything. What they did is, over time, they skewed the perception of grandpa and grandma of their 15-year-old. And in a sad twist of events, the 15-year-old felt like she had lost her grandparents and lost all credibility in the eyes of her grandparents, because the mother and the father helped over time to skew the perception of the grandparents just by gossiping, just by meddling, just by getting into their daughter's world, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, promising they weren't going to say anything, but then running to grandpa and grandma to talk about it, you know. And of course, parents need people to confide in, but the things that they were telling the grandparents just didn't need to be said. It just didn't. They didn't have any protection over their daughters. So, and this can happen to you as well. You lose legitimacy. You lose any kind of footing that you may have originally had, because the gossip, the meddling, the lies, you know, sometimes the stretched truth can go against you over time. All right, guys, I'm going to go to the chat box, see what you guys are saying, answer some questions. I'm going to come back and tell you how you should view these kind of individuals and what are the things that you need to be looking for in your own life. I think you're going to like that. Mrs. Ed, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. I'm glad to see you. Says, I assumed the gossipers were just petty, ignorant people. I had no idea that they had dark triad personality traits. Yeah, exactly. That's because, again, research in psychology in recent years has really tried to zone in on characteristics of these individuals. Not everybody who gossips, not everybody who meddles, not everybody who's a busybody is a dark personality. However, you really want to ask yourself, once you learn a person is doing these things, you want to ask yourself, to what extent will these individuals go? You know, we all do this stuff, right? I don't like to gossip. I don't gossip. But what I will do is I'll observe, and I'll go to somebody and I'll talk about what I've observed. And I'm sure most of you are like that as well. That is fine. Gossiping is taking information that may or may not be true and spreading it to the next person. And you might be adding some lies in there. You might be exaggerating too. So these kind of individuals have dark personality traits. They are not there to be your friend in any form or fashion. So yeah, they do, Mrs. Ed. They have dark personality traits. Jam Noise 72, hello, welcome from the UK, my favorite country. I totally want to, if I don't move there, I want to live there for a little while. I really do. I love being in the UK. Welcome, glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Okay, guys, bear with me. Marta Kaur, hello and welcome. Thank you for those hearts. Glad to see you. I saw you in the last chat and I'm like, man, I skipped over her. I did see you. I don't want you to feel like I'm ignoring you at all. None of you. SH, hello and welcome. Glad to see you tonight. Says hi. Some may do it because of sadism. I'm sorry, guys. And it makes them superior. Always part of the problem, never part of the solution. Yeah. Research in psychology says it's three important things: power, control, and dominance. Power, control, and dominance. It puts you above, right? When you can meddle in somebody's business, really what you're doing is saying that I have the right to know the information that I'm asking you for. That is the wrong disposition in and of itself, right? And that is narcissistic. What makes these individuals the big part of the problem is that they will sometimes approach you as if they deserve to know, and then they'll take your information and maybe skew the truth, add something, detract something. And what does it do? It creates a power differential. That's what we call it, a power differential, where they're up here above you because they're the ones running the mouth and going all around giving perceptions that may or may not be true. They have put themselves above you, and you're down here trying to figure out, how did this start up, right? How did this happen? So there's a power differential in here for sure. Phoenix says, no one in my family seems to understand what boundaries are. Now that I'm living with mom as an adult, she still felt she had a reason to be coming in my room and looking through myself. Or did you mean my stuff, my things, myself? It feels violating. It is violating. I think once a child enters adolescence, I think parents really and honestly need to keep an eye out, try to keep an open relationship, but you should not be going through the things. If you are over the age of 18, I think you should have your privacy. So I'm sorry about that, Phoenix. I think that's a power play again. It's a power play. I'm up here, you're down here. Sharifa says, the pastor's wife tried that on me. I learned right then and there that she's not a safe person. Of all people, sad, I no longer attend there. Yeah. I think there is literally research on the psychology of religion. And we're not talking about the psychology of why we believe, faith. We're not even talking about the psychology of Christianity. I'm trying to think of some of the other religions. I was trying to find like another common religion, different denominators like Baptists, Pentecostals, Catholics. We're not talking about that psychology because there's a lot of psychology. There's a lot of research in psychology on those different denominations. But there's actual research on the psychology of religion. Why is a religious environment, one of the most ripe places for gossip, betrayal trauma, nosiness, meddlers, right? And some people kind of feed that, My grandfather, he is 90, I think. Yeah, he's 90. And he was a pastor for so many years. I want to say over 30 years. Same thing with my mom. Other family members. I'm very familiar with the religious environment. I'm a believer, but I don't like the religious environment. I think it is one of the most detrimental, it can be one of the most detrimental places to be, because there you are in your vulnerability. And this is more so for you, Sharifa. You're in your vulnerable place, right? You're crying, you're praying, you're worshiping, you're hoping that a God hears you. You're hoping that God hears you. You're hoping that something can change within your own life, your own heart, your own mind, right? You're believing by faith that things in your world is going to change, right? Sometimes you're even at the altar, right? Crying, really giving your heart to God, right? Or sometimes you're just sitting and reading your Bible, or you're enjoying a mass, right? You can't do that in your most vulnerable place if there are meddlers, busybodies, gossipers, and nosy people all around you. It's like that is the most vulnerable place for these kind of individuals to exist, and they exist. I have a client who has come to me off and on over the years because her entire family, they are pastors, every last one of them, from her 5 sisters to her parents. And she grew up in the church, and she got married in the church, and she's raising her own kids in the church. Wonderful, beautiful, that's great. However, dad shares her information with mom, who is the first lady. Mom sometimes needs to confide in her own pastor, and so she takes the information to him. And then on one occasion, he took that information to somebody else. And then the next service that happened, my client says they could feel the energy in the room shift to her as she was walking in, because everybody knew what was going on in her life. And so all she wanted to do was run and hide. That's what she wanted to do, run and hide. You know, when the reality is she should have been able to walk into her church and feel love and compassion and acceptance. No, she was feeling like everybody knew her, because everybody did. They had her personal information. Okay, Sharifa, that was my long validation for you. I think sometimes churches can be the worst. Mass can be the worst place to go. Synagogues can be the worst place. It depends on the people there, right? The people make that environment what it is. And I don't think God would be mad at you for walking away. I do not. I do not. You want to be in a place that's safe, real, authentic. Give it a think. Hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to see you back. Says gossipers on a power trip. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Sadie Smith says, that's me, the private neighbor. I wonder if they think I'm rude and snotty. I mean, sometimes they do. I feel like some of my neighbors think I am. And I'm not talking about my immediate neighbors. I'm talking about my neighbors that are way down the street. When I'm outside working, I'm outside working. When I'm outside gardening, I'm gardening. I don't want to talk to you. Doesn't mean I don't like you. Doesn't mean I do. It's just I need that time for me. I'm private. So I'm with you, Sadie Smith. I'm with you. Okay. Terry Crawford, hello and welcome. Thank you so much for that. I'm glad this is informative. We're going to get into the meat of this in just a second. Discog says, this paradigm, double-sided cookie, glad to not be alone. But nobody should have to endure this. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Grow says, have no fear. Anything worthy of your love, time, and effort is definitely worth dying for. I believe. Glad to see the sunrise every morning. Yeah, me too. That's gratitude, right? Yeah. Says, what's really funny is I get made fun of for being private, like as if I think I'm special. Yeah, absolutely. Some people do think that. Some people think that you think you're better than them too because you're private. Think whatever you want to think. Too much wit. Hello and welcome. Thank you for that. Glad to see you tonight. Welcome to the chat. I don't remember seeing you, so welcome. Sunkissed Diva 01 says, this is exactly why in the books of 1 Timothy and Titus in the Bible address this very topic on gossipers, because of our Heavenly Father knows about these types of hypocritical dark ones. Excuse me, I'm stuttering. Yes, absolutely. It is a part of the Bible. Absolutely. Yes. And First Timothy is where it is. I agree. Yep. And Titus. Yeah. Yeah. Because the whole idea here is you're taking what belongs to me, and that is not okay. Who says that's acceptable? VS01, hello and welcome back. Glad to see you back in tonight's live chat. Positive vibes only, hello and welcome. Says busybodies want to act concerned, but just only fishing for information. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There are people who will fish for information, and they do it in a variety of ways. We can actually have a whole live chat on people who fish for information, because there's specific steps that they do take, whether they're aware of it or not, you know. But yeah, fishing for information. I once had somebody come up to me, okay, and say to me, what do you think about that neighbor over there? Did you meet them yet? And you want to know what my response to that was? I have no idea. I'm sorry. I got to get going. I have some things I need to do. Nice talking to you. And I walked away. Why? Because I don't feel I have the right to talk about that neighbor over there, you know? No. So sometimes you have to shut nosy people down like that, but they will fish for information, you know? I have clients that know each other in the waiting room, you know, because they've either seen me around the same time, or they know each other and they're seeing me, whatever. And sometimes if I go out in the waiting room to grab one person or family, you know, I can hear certain people within earshot of my waiting room, and I can hear them say, so how have things been? And the other person may say, things have been stressful. And guess what they'll say? Oh my, yeah, the same thing's been happening to me. Yeah. Is it school or is it? And the person may say something and they'll say, oh, I see. Yeah. You want to talk about it? Fishing for information. Fishing for information. That's one example of that. I hate it. It's so bad. It's so bad because you're like, I really don't want to talk to you right now. I really don't. Girl Mom, hello and welcome. Glad to have you back tonight. Says, I've been thinking about this. Like, what makes family or people so hateful, but it's hard to say. They can take anything and turn it against you. A gift, anything is weird. Yeah, that's so true. They can take a gift and turn it against you. They can. You're right. I'm glad you made that point. Yeah, I agree with that. Mia K, hello. Happy Friday to you. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to have you back. Dee, let me read this briefly, and says, yes, that's me. I avoid the holier than thou church groupies. Yeah, don't sit at the front of the church. That's where they are. Dee goes on to say, even so, I'm so hated because I quote them Bible verses relating to gossip. Yeah, they probably don't like you for that one. I learned as a child, if you sit up in the front of the church, okay, I've been to mass, I've been to church, I've been to synagogues. If you sit in the front, you may want to sit in the back, because that's where all the gossipers are, in the front. I'm probably wrong. I shouldn't do that. But that's my experience. I'll put it that way. Sadie Smith, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right, guys, a few more comments. I'm going to go back to the chat. Go back to the content so that we can wrap up here in just a little bit. HSR 1986 says, people falsely believe that gossip among family is somehow okay, somehow less harmless. Then that takes place among non-relatives simply because there is a blood tie. So in a nutshell, you're saying family members thinks it's okay because there's a bloodline, you know, and they feel like it is normal and owed to them. And I very, very, very much disagree. Very much disagree. Yeah. No, just because you're my family doesn't mean you have first dibs on the information that concerns me. AM, welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to see you. I haven't seen you before, so welcome. Says, narc neighbor weaponizes info on me. Yeah, they can. They can. Yep, they can. That's why. And my great grandmother on my grandfather's side used to say this all the time to me and my mom. She would say to my mom, for the most part, because my mom was the older one, she would say, you're not going to get Willis wound up in anything. That was kind of like her constant saying, you know, you're not going to get Willis wrapped up in anything, you know. And that was kind of like her elderly grandma saying to get us to understand that you're not going to find me wrapped up in the middle of anything, because I'm not going to gossip. I'm not going to allow this individual to pull me into anything and then get me wrapped up in it, right? You're not going to be able to weaponize the things that I'm sharing, or the things that has been told to me in confidence, you know? Okay, I'm going to keep going, guys. We're going to go back to the content in just a second. Ellie Wynn. That's awesome, Phoenix. That's what I want. That's awesome. Phoenix says, the more I come here, the more normal I feel. That's good to know. LOL to that. That is hilarious, Phoenix. Ellie Wynn says, entitled because they believe they can do whatever they want and the rules do not apply to them. The rules do not apply to them because these kind of individuals, and we're not talking about all nosy people and all meddlers and busybodies. We're talking about just this select few that I'm highlighting. The issue is they don't care about the rules. And so that's why they're Machiavellian, and that's why they're sadistic, because they don't care. There's no boundaries. There's no concern. So you're right. The rules do not apply to them. Hi, James McDonald. Glad to see you back tonight. Says, hi, Tamara. Just joined from the UK. Didn't realize you were doing a live tonight. Yes, I am. Tomorrow's a video, but I'll explain that at the end of the live chat. Fifi LaFleur. Oh, glad to see you, by the way, James McDonald. Glad to see you back, if I didn't say that already. Fifi LaFleur, hello and welcome. Glad to have you. Says, I have a neighbor like this. She is constantly probing into my business. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. People who probe, there's something wrong with them, you know, and we can have a whole live chat on that as well at some point, you know. All right, guys, how can these individuals be understood? What's going on here? How should you see these kind of individuals? You know, because sometimes going in your house and slamming the door is not enough, right? Blocking somebody on social media or texting or phone calls is not enough sometimes. And if you tend to be in a relationship with someone, or you're a family member with someone, blocking them isn't always, you know, easy to do. So how should you kind of understand these people? Well, based on my clinical experience and psychology research, really what you want to look at a person like this as is an individual, I'll put it this way, an individual who very much desires power, control, and dominance. So they are in the need of wanting to, I'll put it this way, they are in the need of gaining control and power. They are trying to assert their power over you and over the people that they're talking to. So some research in psychology has suggested, I'll post it in the description box, that when a gossiper, a nosy person, a busybody, a meddler gets in the middle of something, they're not only asserting their power over you, but they're also asserting their power over the listener, the other person that they're talking to. Why? Or how? Because they're controlling the information that other person is receiving. And that information can be true or false. For the most part, it's exaggerated truth. It's stretched truth. It's truth that is possibly being told by a histrionic person, somebody who's very dramatic, somebody who catastrophizes things and makes it bigger than it needs to be. That individual is asserting their power, not only over you, for having your information and getting into your business, but also asserting their power over the other person who's listening. You know, they're controlling the exchange and the reciprocity of information. And that's a really big place to be if you think about it, right? Because if you're in a workplace and everybody gets together in the conference room to gossip about Kimmy over there, that leaves Kimmy over there in the dark all by herself. And everybody in the conference room, 5 or 6 of you, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the people who's talking about Kimmy, are all in a place of dominance and control, because Kimmy has no power to address the issue, to know what's going on, to correct the information that's being told, right? So the individual. The way you want to see some of these individuals is they're trying to assert the power over you as the victim and over somebody else, the receiver of information. You also want to look at the fact that they're trying to create a power differential. They're trying to create a power dynamic. How can I get up here and put the other person down here? Consider an envious mother, for example. Let's say your mom is envious of everything you've ever done. What's a powerful way for her to gain dominance over you? It's to meddle into your business, run to your other family members with all your private information, and watch the chips fall as they may. And sometimes an envious, jealous, competitive person, that's all they need is gossip, and they've got you, right? So sometimes the individual is creating a power dynamic. They're trying to one up you, trying to get above you, trying to get on top of you and have control and power over you. There's also the idea of covert aggression. Meddlers, busybodies, gossipers sometimes are covert. And I'll put it this way, individuals who express or display covert aggression. I'm trying to find the best way to put this in terms for you. They tend to display covert aggression. It's passive aggressive. It's under the surface. So, you offended your uncle last week when you told him to mind his business. Okay. He didn't respond to you. He didn't fight back. He didn't get upset. He just sat there. You yelled at him and said, mind your own business. Okay. And he sits there quietly, and you think everything is fine until 4 days later, your aunt's coming to you saying that your uncle is saying things about you. Is it true you're on drugs? Is it true you're dating it? Is it true that you're A, B, and C? It's passive aggressive. The uncle has taken your information, something you said, something maybe you didn't say, and just ran with it, right? So covert aggression is aggression that happens under the surface. Meddlers, busybodies, gossipers, they use it all the time. You may not ever see it coming. There's a disregard for valued social norms. You want to keep that in mind, guys. All gossipers are not just people who are interested in sharing information or being observant. For the most part, these individuals totally disregard valued social norms, privacy, care and compassion, honesty, authenticity. They disregard all of it. Gossiping, meddling, being a busybody, it also provides a stage for validation and sometimes also advantage. If me and my cousin over here are gossiping about uncle over there, the advantage is that we now have a closer relationship because we're gossiping about the same thing. The other advantage is that I get to be heard and listened to, and my feelings are being validated by this exchange between me and this other person. And so sometimes gossipers, meddlers, busybodies, doing these things gives them an advantage, a social advantage, and validation. We already talked about religiosity and cliques. That's a part of this. You also want to see these individuals as kind of thriving in religious environments. They also thrive in workplaces. They thrive in families, blended families, step families. They also thrive in cliques at work. There's these 5 people who are constantly sitting with each other. So that's the sad part. You also want to keep in mind about these kind of personalities that for the most part, they have learned to be this way. They have learned to be this way. Either they learned it as a child or an adolescent, or they've learned it as an adult. But these kind of individuals, they learn this behavior over time. And sometimes they get socially rewarded. You know why sometimes the police will give you, they won't arrest you, or sometimes a judge will give you a lesser sentence for being honest. That's kind of that's a reward. It's a little bit of a social reward. And so sometimes gossipers, meddlers, busybodies, they get socially rewarded for telling things, and that reinforces the behavior, and they continue on doing the same thing in different environments. They also sometimes seek self-protection and social enjoyment. I can protect myself socially if I become a part of this clique. The sorority, where we all, quotation marks, sorority, where we all kind of talk about people, and of course there's social enjoyment in there as well. Lastly, guys, in this category, before I go back to the chat box and we wrap up, let me say research in psychology says that gossiping and being a meddler is not always a bad thing. Think of the family member, the neighbor, the friend, the boss who meddles, right? Or they get in the middle of things, but they can definitely tell you who murdered A, B, and C over there. They can definitely tell you who lifted up your living room window and stepped in it while you were at work. You know what I mean? And sometimes gossipers can give you information way ahead of the curve, information that you're going to need. So in a nutshell, psychology research says it's not always a bad thing. Really what you want to do, and this is my suggestion to you guys, is you want to be able to separate who's a helpful individual in this area and who has the dark personality traits that I need to absolutely run from. That's really what your goal should be when you're dealing with another human being. Are you the nice gossiper, the one who's going to give me information out of the goodness of your heart? Or are you a dark personality trait, the psychopath, the narcissist, the Machiavellian personality, and the sadistic personality? All right, guys, let me go to the chat box so we can wrap up. This is a lot of content, and isn't it, guys? It's a pretty heavy conversation, but the goal for tonight was to break this down to you guys. So hopefully it was helpful to you. Ellie Wen, thank you so much for that. Yeah, I agree. Okay, I'm just looking at everybody's comments. Sometimes I don't know who to go to because you guys have such awesome comments. James McDonald here, I'm going to put him up on the screen, says, my family had several busybodies. You're right, Tamara. They do not take time to invest in the relationship, nor do they truly care for you besides wanting to butt their nose into your business. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. They butt their nose into your business and sometimes they run with it too, right? Oh my God, that happened to James. Oh my God. Let me go to somebody call on Fufu for me, and then on Fufu knows, and so do all her neighbors. And it's like, come on, guys, do you have to take my business and spread it like that? Grow says jealousy is one of my favorite strains. Yeah. I hear the sarcasm. I do. Give It a Think says they do not care about your investment in the relationship because their investment was merely a facade. They do not feel attached. Sometimes, I think that's an excellent way to put it. Sometimes, if you're in a relationship or have a family member who is a narcissist, or you're in a relationship with somebody who's a narcissist, everything is plastered, right? Everything is a facade. It's an illusion. They're not really who they try to promote themselves as. And you'll find these individuals visibly appear loving and kind and, respectful. But the reality is they're behind your back talking about you all day and all night. Some people only gossip too on social media. That's another thing I should have brought up earlier. Sometimes they gossip, but they do it on social media. And the sad part about that is you cannot track where they've been on social media. So sometimes you may not even know where your information is being spread, and that's the sad part. The Facebookers, for example, the Facebook people, those of you who remember Facebook or still use it, it's like gossipers, busybodies, meddlers, nosy people, they go to Facebook, and they take that information and spread it. And sometimes it's hard to tell how in the world the guy at Home Depot around the corner got my information. I had a client that had that happen to them, by the way. Thinks like a lion. Ooh, I like that. Says jealousy is as cruel as the grave. I agree. Welcome to the live chat, by the way. Mary Emma, hello and welcome. Glad to have you tonight in the live chat. All right. Bye, Courtney Fraser. I hope you have a good Friday and that you tune in tomorrow. Thank you so much, Grow. I'm so glad to hear that you like them, that they are helpful. That's awesome. Thank you for that. Sunkissed Diva 01 says, my egg donor mother She would ask a pregnant woman if she was afraid of labor, regardless of her answer. She would quickly went into her arduous and painful experience of labor, no hopes of getting supply. Oh, I get you. Yeah, she's giving her information that the poor lady probably didn't even need to hear. Just sounds like negative, a negative vibe. Oh my God, Ellie Wen. I'm not going to read that. I'm not going to read that, but I will put it up on the screen. Hearts, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. I hope that you're having a great Friday. I'm sorry if I didn't welcome you. I saw you earlier. It just escaped me. Anne of Hearts says, real power is gained by respect. I agree. Fake power is made through manipulation of situations. Very much agree. That is so well put. Glad you said that. Teneblis Abysmos. I always mess this up. You know what I mean. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to have you. Earl Keith, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. We're going to wrap up here in just a little bit. Says, once rumors and gossip starts, everyone passes the buck on how and where it began by falling silent or just keep changing the subject to good. I'm going to say this, they will expose themselves by escalating questioning. Sometimes, yeah. And sometimes if you address them, right, they've already spread your information to 900 different people. So what can they do? They can back out of it and say, I had nothing to do with that. I had nothing to do with that at all. And now you have to look at 899 people to figure out who could have been spreading your information. It's like wildfire. Once it gets caught, it's going to continue to keep going and going, especially in a family. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, I'm still looking at comments, guys. Bear with me, and then we're going to wrap up. Lily Mew, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Says, some people will hate and gossip about you by making stories because you are private. Yeah, sometimes they will. Mm-hmm. And they may start with the statement, oh, she's over there. Imagine you're at work, okay? You're eating your lunch at your desk quietly, doing your paperwork. Nosy busybodies on the job. Look at her over there, sitting by herself, eating her lunch. I bet you she's something at home, or I bet her husband is glad when she's at work. And you're right, they'll just come up with something. I have a client that's actually going through trauma therapy, seeing me and another therapist, because the trauma associated with being erroneously categorized is a lot. And it's only because she doesn't meddle. She's not a busybody and she doesn't get involved and wrapped up in gossip, Brava 101 said, glad you caught my live chat as well. Welcome. Glad to have you tonight. We're going to wrap up here in just a little bit. Ethereal Regions, I probably messed that up. I apologize. Welcome. Glad to have you on tonight's live chat. Says, being the youngest of a large family, I've spent my entire life putting up with ultra toxic half siblings and even their children. Yeah. Oh, I bet. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, that's rough. Elizabeth Pepper, especially, I'm sorry, let me go back to something, especially when it's a blended family, right? Because you have siblings that are blood siblings and maybe siblings who are not. And, maybe the gossiping siblings or the meddlers are the half siblings. It's just such a mess, it can be. Elizabeth Pepper, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. Says, hey, y'all, Tamara, would you say a family that disguises concern as a way to obtain information and then discusses, aka gossips among the family, is a symptom of a bigger issue? It can be. If it's a dysfunctional, passive aggressive family of narcissists, Individuals who are manipulative, yes, it is a sign of a bigger problem. Yes, I would say so. And I would say that it is a problem of dark personalities. Yeah, because to disguise a true intention is what out of the list of 3 triad traits: narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. Where would disguising information to get information, what would that be under, guys? Likely it would be under narcissism and Machiavellianism, because narcissism, they want to one up you, they want to be on top, they want to know more than you, they want to have status, you know. They have a desire for tension, power, and control. So it would be narcissism. And then Machiavellianism, there's pleasure that is obtained from doing something to somebody else that's harmful. So yes, anytime you disguise one behavior in order to manipulate using another behavior, that is dark. That is dark. You're welcome. You're welcome, AM. That was a great question, by the way, Elizabeth. Thank you for saying that or asking that. Okay, guys. Martin Terry, I was just getting ready to say, let's wrap up. Martin Terry said, welcome to the live chat, by the way, says religious zealots is the term. Zealots? Yeah. Am I saying that right? That sounds weird to me. Zealots? I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I'm humble enough to receive correction. Correct me. Christina LZ says, I have been surrounded by so many cruel family and friends. I was talking to a friend today saying it takes pieces of my soul away. I'll never get back to her again. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that, Christina. That's rough. Okay, I'm just looking. Angel Warrior, hello and welcome. Glad to see you tonight. Says they sure will retaliate later. Yes, they will. If you get a gossiper, a busybody, a meddler, or an individual who just loves getting into the middle and creating chaos, they're nosy, they will sometimes retaliate. And especially if you catch on that you know that they are the problem in the whole dynamic, they will definitely retaliate. Sharon, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. Says, I'm so sorry about that. Says, how do you deal with such people when they are your immediate family members? Very simple, without going into a whole live chat, because we can actually have a whole live chat on that. Very simple. You can explicitly state, clearly state, concretely state, I don't feel comfortable sharing that information with you right now. I don't believe that you need to know all those details. Another way that you could, kind of address this issue would be, I'm not ready to tell you about that right now. I'm not. I really don't want to talk about it right now. It's nothing against you. It's just, I'm not ready to talk about that. Or like I told one of my other clients last week, I said, if you don't want your friends, this is one of my adolescent clients. I said, if you don't want your friends bugging you and prodding you and pushing you and, just trying to get to the core of what's wrong with you, you can simply say, I see that you may be concerned. I see that maybe you want to know what's going on. I just want to have my space while I process this. I just want to have my space while I process this. Or I just want to have some space before I share it with anybody else. There's so many angles you can take that. So if you have a family member, Sharon, who's like, what happened to you and Bob? I thought you guys were getting married. You could just very simply say, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about that right now, or I'm just not ready to talk about that. I'll talk about it. I may and I may not at some point, but tonight is not the night, and cut it off and keep moving. Sometimes that's all you need to do, and the person gets it. I better not bother her. She's not playing with me. Cam asks me, would virtually all gossip be classified as triangulation? Sorry, I feel like I'm asking way too many questions. This topic is so interesting. You're not asking way too many questions. I'm so glad. It is a form of triangulation because it's one person who's taking the story of another person and going to another person. So a triangle is 3 people. And once you get 3 people in a triangle, right, then yes, it becomes triangulation, 100%. Moon Warrior Turtle said, I failed at protecting my vulnerable information in an attempt to gain closeness and sympathy from my mother. Ooh, yeah. Something in me wouldn't accept how emotionally abusive my mother always been towards me. Yeah, absolutely. I'm so sorry, Moon Warrior Turtle. Let me say that sometimes that is a big mistake, right? We sometimes open our heart to our family members and say, okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to trust you. And then they just do something, you know, and it ignites this fire. And so I totally get that. Totally get that. Yeah. That is betrayal to me. And of Hearts, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate you for that. I appreciate you guys when you do those things. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. Thank you, Anne of Hearts. Bravo 101, before we wrap up here, says you're definitely talking about my sister tonight. She single-handedly, permanently altered our family dynamic. Every time I try to speak to my mother, she answers for me. Yeah, that's very, very dominating and controlling, right, guys? Ellie Wen says, great comments, Tam family. I agree. You guys are the best. Anytime I post a live chat, the first thing I say is the chat box is the absolute best. Marie B, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to see you. Tarika Styles, hello and welcome. Before I sign off here, just saying hello, love and happiness. So glad to see you. Says, just left a job where the executive director was triangulating and devaluing me. Yeah, I don't blame you. I'd leave too. All right. Leslie Stern, hello and welcome tonight. Says, it's so sad because they make you feel like they really are interested in you when they are looking for information. And then you realize it was all fake. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Some people get great pleasure, and this is the Machiavellian personality traits. This is the sadistic personality traits. Some people just get great pleasure out of seeing you squirm when they ask for information, out of seeing you tell them, I'm not going to talk about that, because then they can take that and presuppose some other things, you know, busybodies will go the extra mile. They really will. Valencia Walker, I hope I said that correctly. Welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. All right, guys, I am going to sign off. But before I do, I cannot leave out Fairy Girl. Hello, Fairy Girl. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. For those of you that I couldn't get to, just know I am going to go back through this as I always do. And I'm going to look at your comments. Please post them in the comment section if you want me to respond or answer questions. Thank you for being with me in this long chat. I hope it was helpful. Tomorrow, guys, feel free to join me 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to be doing a promotion video, okay? But I think it is still a helpful video. Tomorrow, the video is on the neurobiology of trauma, And then at the end of that video, I give you guys a discount code to get a really popular device that is helpful for PTSD, okay? I'll have all the information in that video for tomorrow, so join me. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I will see you guys real soon. Thanks so much for being with me. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.